Have you ever heard about the heist of the century? Let us take a journey back to the year 1976, where the quiet city of Nice in southern France was shaken by a robbery that left even the most seasoned detectives scratching their heads. This was no ordinary crime. This was a heist at a Société Générale branch that would go down in history, confounding the police for decades. Imagine a gang of thieves, faces unknown, identities a mystery, tunneling through the city sewers. Their sights set on one thing: the bank vault. Their audacious plan? To snatch a fortune equivalent to 29 million euros. The amount is staggering, but what's more remarkable is the method. This was no smash and grab job. This was a carefully orchestrated operation, carried out with precision and audacity. The loot, 46 million francs, a king's ransom that vanished, as did the gang responsible for the audacious heist. Despite the efforts of the police, only one person was ever charged with the crime. The rest of the gang, along with the stolen fortune, disappeared, leaving no trace behind. The case grew cold, the trail went dead, and the heist of the century remained an unsolved mystery. A tale of intrigue and audacity that baffled law enforcement and captivated the public. For years, the case was a puzzle with missing pieces, a story without an ending, a mystery that seemed destined to remain unsolved. But as is often the case with such tales, there was a surprising twist waiting in the wings. In the year 2010, the narrative took an unexpected turn, a development that would shed new light on this decades-old crime. A revelation that would finally give a face to the mastermind behind the heist of the century. For years, this robbery remained a mystery until a surprising twist in 2010. Next, we delve into this surprising twist, a revelation that breathed new life into a case that had long gone cold. Stay tuned as we unravel the mystery of the heist of the century. In 2010, the case took an unexpected turn when a book emerged. A page-turner, no doubt, but this was no ordinary work of fiction. This was a book penned by a seasoned criminal, daringly portraying himself as the mastermind behind the infamous heist. The author used a pen name, but his true identity didn't remain concealed for long. Investigators quickly identified him as Jacques Cassandri, a notorious mafia figure in Marseille. Cassandri, the once elusive figure, was suddenly under the spotlight, his anonymity shattered. The book, intended as a masterstroke of audacity, had become his Achilles heel. The authorities had a new lead, and they were closing in. The trial began on a Monday, more than 40 years after the heist that had baffled the police and fascinated the public. Cassandri was finally in the dock, not for the heist itself, but for a crime that France has no statute of limitations for: money laundering. He had assumed he was safe because the original crime was too old to be prosecuted. But, as it turns out, the law had a long memory and a longer reach. The detectives found the manuscript on Cassandri's computer. His children later confessed that their father often bragged about the robbery, adding another piece to the jigsaw puzzle. Cassandri, the alleged puppet master of the heist, was now the central character in a real-life courtroom drama. He eventually admitted to orchestrating the meticulously planned job. It involved at least 6 people, 30 tanks of acetylene to fuel the welding torches used to cut into safes and safety deposit boxes. Cassandri claimed he only received the equivalent of about 2 million euros, which he quickly spent. But the prosecutor was not convinced. Cassandri was broke in 1976, but now he sat atop an empire that included several businesses and real estate. Cassandri thought he was safe, but he was wrong. The book that was supposed to be his triumphant confession had become the key piece of evidence against him. His audacious move had backfired, and the mastermind was now on trial for the crime he had boasted about in his book. Cassandri's children spilled the beans, and he himself could not resist bragging about his past. And so it came to pass that the whispers of a father's past echoed through the mouths of his children. Jacques Cassandri had a habit of boasting about his exploits, a trait that inevitably seeped into the ears of his offspring. They became the unwitting bearers of his secret, the clandestine tale of the century's most audacious heist. In a twist of fate, it wasn't only familial whispers that led to Cassandri's exposure. His own words, etched in digital ink, were found by the authorities. Cassandri had penned a manuscript, a self-aggrandizing chronicle of the infamous heist. The text, discovered on his personal computer, was a Pandora's box, opening up a world of revelations about the audacious robbery. The manuscript was not merely a braggart's tale, but an admission of guilt. Cassandri confessed to being the puppet master behind the grand scheme. The heist was no simple venture. It was a meticulously planned operation, involving at least 6 people and 30 tanks of acetylene to fuel the welding torches used to cut into safes and safety deposit boxes. But the story didn't end there. Cassandri claimed that his share of the spoils was a mere 2 million euros. A significant sum, yes, but a fraction of the total loot. He insisted that he spent his part of the ill-gotten gains hastily, living a life of extravagance until his pockets were empty. However, this claim was met with skepticism. Could the orchestrator of such an audacious crime, the mastermind who had evaded the law for over 4 decades, have walked away with so little? There were doubts, questions, and a lingering sense of disbelief. The authorities weren't pleased with this part of Cassandri's tale, and neither were those who had followed the story with bated breath. But was Cassandri telling the truth? We will explore this question further in the next scene. Despite claiming to have received only a small portion of the loot, Cassandri's wealth told a different story. The man who stood accused of masterminding the heist of the century was not living the life of a man who had only pocketed a mere 2 million euros. Jacques Cassandri was far from being penniless. An investigating magistrate raised a brow at Cassandri's claim. The magistrate noted that Cassandri was broke back in 1976, around the time of the heist. But fast forward to the present, and we find a man who is far from being in a financial rut. It's quite the opposite, in fact. Cassandri now sits atop an empire that's not built on sand, but on solid ground, with several businesses and real estate holdings. It's a curious case, isn't it? A man who was once penniless now has an empire at his disposal. The question then is, where did this wealth come from? If Cassandri only received the equivalent of about 2 million euros from the heist, which he claims to have quickly spent, how did he amass such a fortune? There's a discrepancy here that's hard to ignore. One can't help but wonder if the heist had a larger role to play in this. Could it be that Cassandri got more than he admitted? Could it be that the heist's proceeds were funneled into building this empire? The truth is elusive, but the suspicion is as clear as day. Cassandri's lawyers argue that his book is just a novel, not a piece of evidence. But isn't that what makes this case so intriguing? The fact that a novel could potentially unravel the mystery of the heist of the century? It's a twist that's as unexpected as the heist itself. At the end of the day, only one thing is certain. Cassandri's empire is a glaring contradiction to his claim. It's a discrepancy that casts a long shadow of doubt, making one question the true extent of his involvement in the heist. Could this be the result of the heist's proceeds? Only time will tell. Before Cassandri's book, there was another suspect in the picture. Meet Albert Spaggiari, a name that was for decades synonymous with the audacious Nice heist. Arrested just a few months after the robbery, Spaggiari was widely believed to be the mastermind behind the crime that had left the police utterly confounded. However, Spaggiari's tale took a daring turn that would have made a thrilling addition to any crime novel. In a bold escape, he jumped out of a window at the Marseille courthouse. An accomplice was waiting outside, their getaway vehicle, a motorcycle, ready to roar into action. In a flash, Spaggiari was gone, leaving behind a trail of questions and a mystery that remained unsolved for decades. His escape painted a picture of a cunning criminal, a man who could orchestrate the heist of the century and then disappear into thin air. Though Spaggiari escaped, the mystery of the heist remained unsolved. Let's dive into the details of the heist that shook France. This was not a spur-of-the-moment crime. The planning was intricate, and the execution nothing short of meticulous. The gang used rubber rafts to navigate the sewers, reaching the spot where they would begin their ambitious 8-meter tunnel. They installed hundreds of meters of electrical cables to illuminate their underground path, and, in a bizarre touch of flair, adorned the tunnel walls with racy pictures. Weeks of tireless labor saw them break into the bank vault on a quiet weekend. They carefully went through nearly 200 safe deposit boxes and the bank's 5-ton safe, leaving nothing but empty shells. And when they finally left, they welded the vault door shut, leaving behind a haunting message. Without weapons, without violence, and without hate. This was a heist executed without weapons, violence, or hate, but it left a lasting mark on history.